Hello, my brothers and sisters in Phenomenology. Is the music too loud? I can lower it. Tell me. I don't want it to compete with my voice. Bryce, tell me, is the music too loud? If one of you motherfuckers doesn't tell me if the music's too loud, I'm gonna fucking fuck you up. You can't hear it? You can't hear it? What about now? Tell me if it's too loud. Anyway, so I'm sitting here 3 a.m. in New Jersey. Who the fuck just called me a bitch? I'll fuck you up. I'm sitting here, it's 3 a.m. in New Jersey. How are you all doing in this quarantine? As you sit and grapple with your own mortality. By the way, before I get started, I just want to say that this music is music that was composed, original music that was composed for Phenomenology Club by my good friend Mark Reardon, the very talented jazz pianist. Pianist. It was created for the Against Spirituality video upload, and you can download it by following the links in that upload, or also I'll link it in here when I'm finished. Anyway, I hope you're all doing okay in this quarantine. One of the things I wanted to one of the things I wanted to say before we got into it a little bit is that we have been hosting a plethora of activities in Phenomenology Club, and if any of you are struggling with this quarantine as far as finding ways to keep yourself occupied, please come join us. It's only $1. We have been hosting many activities. For one, we have watched multiple seasons of Thomas the Tank Engine, which is a masterpiece of art, as I'm sure many of you know. Great fucking show. We've been watching movies, too many movies. We're resuming our book club series on Sunday to gather and discuss the Angles reading, Dialectics of Nature. Finally, it's only 16 pages long, so if you're hearing this on Friday or Saturday or even Sunday before 9:30 p.m. EST, I encourage you to read those 16 pages. It's a very light, easy script. I linked the PDF on the website, and you can come, get down and dirty, nitty gritty, and talk to us about this motherfucking Angles reading. We've also been running a singularity simulation called Max, because there is no I in Max, and when we all become Max, then we all become each other. We had our second Max session tonight. It was fun. We're also doing an exercise series, including yoga, which starts tomorrow. Anyway, so I'm sitting here feeling zen as fuck because I have just done day 1 of Jillian Michaels' 30-day shreds workout. And also, I'm cutting down on Adderall, which feels great. By the way, if any of you are also trying to detox or quit drugs during this quarantine, we should all be reaching out to each other with support, because it's difficult. It's really difficult. For myself personally, my difficulty with Adderall especially is that I have such a lust for life that I have deluded myself into this illusion that I am maximizing my life by basically being geeked out of my mind fucking constantly. And I have periods of intense productivity, and I tell myself that Adderall is maximizing my productivity, but when I look back on myself, I don't really think that this is true, and this is part of why I wish to free myself from this lie that I have found myself trapped inside of. You love me, please be myself. I'm trying, but I'm also Max. Anyway, so I just logged onto social media just to see how everyone's doing in the quarantine, because even though, like I've said, I absolutely despise a lot of these narratives I've been seeing on social media, I care very much about all of my human peers. And I want to see how you're all doing. And somebody, one of my social media friends, asked me this question: is art useless? And how they framed the question was, they said that now out of all times, as we are in the midst of this pandemic and this quarantine, now would be a really good time for me to talk about this, because according to them, I've already expressed this sentiment that art is useless. And they think that this time we found ourselves in, this quarantine where everything is going to shit, people are losing their jobs in mass numbers, we're all broke as fuck, that now is a great time to reflect on the futility and the uselessness of art. At least this is what is being insinuated. That's not exactly what they said, but they asked me. So I want to talk about this a little bit. But before I go into it, what do you guys think? Is art useless? Just basic gut instinctual response. Tell me, is art useless? Art, is it useless? Well, when sitting here and grappling with this question by myself, like the Buddha, because I am zen as fuck, I have just shredded so hard with Jillian Michaels. The first thing that I think to myself before I can answer this question is, ever the phenomenologist, what does useless mean? And I think that answer is pretty immediately obvious, right? The definition of useless is something that is without a use, right? But what is use? I've pulled up for us the dictionary definition of use. Let's look at it together for those of you who are sitting by your computer screen. If you're not, I will read it aloud to you. To be without a use. In this context, use is a noun. And the first definition of use, there's many listed, because Merriam-Webster is just great like that and gives us all the fucking options we could ever hope for. But I thought that the first few were appropriate, so I'll read them. Use.
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 1A. The act or practice of employing something. Example sentence: he made good use of his spare time. Definition 1B. The fact or state of being used. Example sentence: a dish in daily use. 1C. A method or manner of employing or applying something. Example: gained practice in the use of the camera. Now, with this in mind, now that we know the definition of use, what does this change? What is the use of art? Does art have a use? Because the definition of useless is being without this thing, this noun that we just read the definition of, a use, right? what is the use of art? And also, is this necessary for art to demonstrate usefulness? Does art have to be demonstrating even the use behind its creation, if there is one? Because this is interesting, and this is part of why I wanted to do the live stream tonight, because I have the memory of a fucking goldfish, a thing that I hope improves as I lessen my Adderall usage, because it's gotten to be really, really bad. Like, I'll watch a movie and forget the plot the next fucking day. I'm not even exaggerating to you. Which is kind of cool, because I rewatch a lot of movies, and it feels like the first time. Feels like the very first time. But tonight in our Max session number 2, there's no I in Max, we were talking about language, and we began to have something that resembled an argument around this statement and whether or not we agreed with it. And the statement was, language is inadequate at communicating. And you know, we had all types of differing opinions around this statement. And the first thing that we set out to do together was to clarify exactly what language might be inadequate at communicating. Because you can't just be inadequate, right? You have to be inadequate at something. And this kind of became the question we were grappling with for a minute. Is it rational to state that language is inadequate, period? Is it rational to state that something is inadequate, period? And we came to the agreement that no. To say that something is inadequate, you have to specify exactly what you are saying it is inadequate at, because it could be anything, you know. I can say, this fork is inadequate. What I think will be assumed, my listener will assume that I am saying, the fork is inadequate at its intended original purpose, you know, at fulfilling this. Maybe the fork is broken and difficult to eat with, and this is the thing we do with forks, right? But without specifying such a statement, this fork is inadequate, really has no meaning, right? Or at least no clearly understood meaning. We must ask for clarification. And I thought that was interesting, reflecting on the way that this conversation went when thinking about this other question: is art useless? Does art have a use? Because I think it is entirely possible, my brothers and sisters in phenomenology, for art to have a purpose, and perhaps not even fulfill that purpose, but perhaps have another purpose. And in that sense, would it be useful if it doesn't fulfill that purpose? If I break a dish and I say, this dish is useless, but then I take this dish and say, you know what? I need a doorstop. I'm gonna use this dish as a doorstop. Now, is the dish still useless? Because I have given it an entirely different use. And now I am using the dish in an application that I'm sure its creator had no concept of it ever being used for. What about this question? If I break a dish, I can no longer eat on the dish, but I decide that the dish works great as a doorstop. Is the dish useless? What do we think? I see you're all thinking. I don't actually see you're all thinking. I see in my mind's eye that you're all thinking, because I know you people. You're some thinking ass motherfuckers. And that's why you're great. Fuck the doorstop. Is art useless? what is the use of art? Because like I said, first of all, I have to define a trajectory for us because I'm our leader right now. Because I am the orator of this discussion. I will give us a task. Because like I just said, if somebody says this fork is inadequate, unless they specify exactly what the fork is inadequate at doing, I'm going to assume that what they mean is the fork is unable to fulfill the original purpose of a fork, okay? So if somebody says that art is useless, I'm going to assume first and foremost, without further clarification, that what they are insinuating is that art itself cannot fulfill its own intended purpose. What is the purpose of art? Forget for a second about what you might think art is good at doing for yourself on a personal level or some other bullshit. What do you think the very purpose of art is? Something that we all can agree on. We have one answer from SS Retrozone, who also says, fuck you, Bethany. Fuck you too, bitch. The fuck? SS Retrozone says that the purpose of art is to depict something. Do we agree? My brothers, my sisters, is the purpose of art to depict something? And if not, what is the purpose of art? Bryce says to express. To express what, Bryce? Elizabeth says personal expression. So we have two people on the express train. Look at that. So we have one interlocutor who says that the purpose of art is to depict something, and also two people now have said that the purpose of art is to express or to be expressive, which is to express. I mean, these things are not mutually exclusive, right? What do we think about this first supposed idea put forth by our, I assume, brother, SS Retrozone, to depict something? Turn my cam on so I can tip you money? What am I, a fucking monkey? Turn your own cam on, bitch. The fuck? We're trying to talk about art. Is the purpose of art to depict something? Or to express something, or both? In your expressing of something with art, are you naturally depicting something or necessarily depicting something? Caitlin Moss says the purpose of art is to be fucking awesome. Elizabeth, I like what you have just said. Elizabeth says that the purpose of art is to adorn. What about this? Because Bryce and somebody else, Elizabeth, also have said that the purpose of art is to be expressive. But what is necessary for a thing to be art, right? Let's think about it. What? Because you can be expressive with all types of things, right? I can stub my toe and be like, fucking shit! And that is an expressive statement, right? It didn't even really state anything except my general discontent with the state of conditions. The state of conditions being that I just stubbed my toe. That is expressive when I curse into the ether and you all experience this expression and receive the information basically by way of inference that I am distraught. So what makes art art though? It can't just be expression, right? It has to be something else, right? Because me yelling fuck shit into the universe is not art, is it? That's just an expression, right? So what else is art? What is necessary for a thing to be art? And I like what Elizabeth just said because I think she's beginning to take us in that direction. When Elizabeth just said to adorn, art has to be some sort of aesthetic presentation, am I wrong? Even if that presentation is of a performance, it is presented to us as art for its aesthetic qualities, right? the aesthetic of the performance, the aesthetic of the concepts that lie within, right? So what else is art except expression? Mary says art is made to be provoking. Is that always true though, Mary? What if some art is made to be a portrait of a president who commissioned you to make up the portrait of him? Is that meant to provoke? I'm waiting. It doesn't have to be so deep. I know you're tempted to make it deep, but let's be real, guys. What is art? I would say that it requires some sort of aesthetic presentation. Can we all agree on this? And not only that, but I believe that it also has to be created to be art. Can we also agree on that? Because someone might make a thing like a chair or a dish or a fork or any other thing with some sort of intended purpose, and we might say, oh, it's so artistically made, it's so well crafted, I love it, so artsy. But is it art? No, it's not really art unless someone makes it and makes it to be art. You might joke around when some baby, splatters its fucking food perfectly onto the floor in some configuration that you find to be beautiful and say, look, the baby made art. I find this to be art, and you find it aesthetically pleasing. But I would say that that's a very atypical thing to happen. I would say that by definition, art is a thing that is created to be art, and that thing requires an aesthetic presentation. That is how it is delivered to us as art. This nice little art bundle that says art on it in big fucking letters that says, look at me, I'm art. Would you agree? Well, I've just told you what I think art is, but what would be the purpose then? I think I would have to agree with Elizabeth and with Bryce, who said that art is an expression. And what are expressions, and what are the purpose of expressions? Family. I would say that the purpose of expressions is to be communicative, even if that communication is only intended for, yourself. When I yell fuck shit into the universe after stubbing my toe, that is an expression meant really for no one except my own personal satisfaction, But that doesn't mean that it's not communicative, I find delight in communicating these things back to myself, and this is much of what I do in my head all damn day long, right? And what we all do when we talk to ourselves in our heads with language, we're really explaining and communicating back to our own conscious minds what we are experiencing in language that makes it more accessible so that we can interface with it, I don't have to consciously think I'm hungry, I'm going to get up and go look into the refrigerator, But once I do get up and go look into the refrigerator a bit, I start to think to myself in actual words. I start to come up with sentences. A hamburger? No, I don't know how to cook hamburger meat because I'm stupid. Oh shit. Well, I think I can make a taco, kind of. I sort of know how to do that. I guess I'll do that. And we got a lime. Okay, good. I start to form words. It's not that I necessarily need them, but I also kind of do, because this is how I interface with my general surroundings, These articulations kind of take me from one place to the next, and I would say that art works in a similar way, in some ways. It is an articulation of a concept. It's expressive, and its aim is to be communicative, even if the audience is singularly you, Max. So in this way, I would say art does have a purpose, right? Art clearly has a purpose, but does it have a use? Like we said, I think a concept like usefulness is similar to a concept like adequate or inadequate. It's relative to something. In the most general sense, I would say that I think the purpose of art is very clearly fulfilled. It's expressive. I mean, listen to this fucking live stream. I still haven't figured out if you can actually even hear the music, but assuming you can hear the music, look at just how having music under my voice has so greatly transformed the aesthetic of this presentation of my Talk About It podcast series. It's taken on an entirely new characteristic just by having this fucking aesthetic thing, this aesthetic sonic presentation of a thing that was created to be an aesthetic presentation of a thing called art under my voice. Isn't that miraculous? Look how much it has so greatly transformed this presentation and turned it into something entirely different. Clearly, art is expressing something. Clearly, art does transform or can be a thing that is transformative when it interacts with other variables like my voice, which usually does not have accompanying music when I do these things. But also, in its own right, look at the kinds of aesthetic presentations art creates and how we react to these expressions, you know. So I would say that I do think art fulfills its primary function and purpose. But I don't think that that's what the person who was speaking to me on social media was really asking me. I think that the context of the question has already insinuated something, and I think what they were asking me is how useful is art in a time like this? My brothers, my sisters, weary from existing in quarantine for only a few days when likely we'll still be in it for months to come. After we've watched all the Thomas the Tank Engine seasons, after we've seen all the movies, after we've run all the Max Singularity sessions, after we've shredded with Jillian Michaels for over 30 days, what are we left with? Nothing. Except grappling with our own mortality, right? And I think the more we grapple with our own mortality, we begin to realize, wow, what's the fucking point? What's the fucking point of art as expression? What's the fucking point of expressing, period? What's the point of communicating, period? What's the point of any of it? 'Cause I will surely die. Bryce says it's very important right now. It's more important than maybe it ever has been. What do you mean by that? I think what this person was asking me, because they were sort of taking on a tone of me having already said this, that art is useless. I think they were referencing the times that I have said that art really, I think, to be an artist, to be a career artist, seems more and more vain and useless. And that honestly is something I can absolutely agree with. But for me, that's not a failing of art itself. Because, like, I think you all, my human peers, are trying to express in the chat to me right now, art is very useful on a personal level, especially in times where we need things like morale boosting. And I think in this way, art functions kind of like a thing like exercise or philosophy or Thomas the Tank Engine. Well, Thomas the Tank Engine is art, obviously. Let's just get that straight right fucking now, okay? Do you understand? You know, clearly art is a tool of expression that we use to communicate to others, but also back to ourselves, concepts that we are working with, that we find satisfying in some configuration. But what is the usefulness of art beyond this? I mean, I think it's sad, and I think that this is what this person was thinking of when they asked me this question. What is sad is to meditate on what art has really become to us, you know? What has art become in the United States of America? It's become something that I think is kind of repugnant, right? Look at all of the people who clearly become artists just because they want to also become millionaires, and art is the easiest way to do that for many people. I know a lot of you artists aren't gonna want to admit that to yourselves or whatever, but it's true. Art is actually pretty fucking easy. What's hard is to make good art, but it's easy to make art. Shit, a baby could do it, your mom could do it, a dolphin could do it. No, a dolphin can't do it. No, a dolphin can do it. Anyone can fucking make art, right? That's easy. And a lot of people see that as a one-way ticket to success, and a lot of people create their entire careers around this thing. And I think that in times like this, it's easy to see that as so fucking repulsive, because in times like this, it's easy to see even your job at McDonald's, when you are one of the most disadvantaged people in your own community, you know, who have this job, are treated like shit, not only by your employers, but by everybody around you, you know. You are so degraded just for occupying this position in society. Even that job, even to have a job at McDonald's in America, that job, the freedom, quote unquote, to have that job is still founded on the broken backs of others around the fucking world. The only reason any of us can sit here at 3 a.m. on the fucking internet and talk to each other about what is art all fucking day long is because others are suffering. The only reason we have money to eat is because others don't have money to eat. The only reason any of us experience anything that even resembles the tiny bit of freedom is because others are not free. So to do a thing like art, to become filthy fucking rich off a thing like art, to participate willingly in this system where people can become filthy fucking rich off a thing like art when people are literally fucking starving, it's easy to quickly become repulsed, you know. Bryce says, art right now is probably the most widely consumed form of mass communication. In an era of political and social unrest, art is a way to express opinions to a massive audience in a way that is both pleasing to look at and effective means of communication. Bryce, you know I love you, brother, but I absolutely 100% fucking disagree. What is the last piece of art that has made its way to the public lexicon that has truly moved you? I would be lying to you if I said I could think of one piece of art produced in the last year, which, you know, isn't that long of a time, but it is when you consider all the new art celebrities we have every fucking year. I can't think of one piece of art that has moved me, especially in a way that has anything to do with any of these other grand themes you're speaking of, like social and political unrest. Like, do any of our artists in the public in America really do things like stir the fucking soul? Yeah, fucking right. Fulk says, we must fill the ears of the artist with sounds of 435 hertz. I think you mean 435 kilohertz, but it's actually 432 kilohertz unless you're on some super deep shit that we don't know about yet. I mean, what about you guys? Can you think of one single piece of art that has really accomplished anything that we could call important right now, especially in a time like this? A piece of art that's like, wow, I am moved, I am inspired to keep going, I am inspired to triumph in the face of hardship, this and that. No. And it's not that they don't exist, because, I'm an artist myself. I make art, and I do try to, make things that I hope can be useful to other people, but mainly because they're useful to myself, and I'm selfish. But, not trying to say that these things don't exist. There's so many artists, especially underground artists, that, are able to accomplish, I would say, these kinds of things, and really make beautiful art that I think is good, quote unquote, for all of us. But it's undeniable that this environment we are in, the artistic landscape, what can be successful, what kinds of things are out there, I would say that they might even be detrimental. Yes, detrimental to public morale. It is depressing. It is depressing to see art, a thing once held in such high esteem by all of us, a thing we could look to in moments like this, when we are all grappling with our own fucking mortality, needing inspiration, needing something to lift our eyes upwards to the heavens. It's depressing that now when I look up, there's nothing except Thomas the Tank Engine. So anyway, do films count in the discussion, Elizabeth Wages asks? Absolutely, films count. Films are art. Fictional writing is art. I mean, even non-fiction writing, I think, can be art. I think philosophy is kind of art in its own right, Anyway, I will end with a message. My message is that if you love art, if art means something to you, if you think that art has a purpose that could be realized, and a purpose that is not being realized, even in moments like this, where, like some of you have expressed, we need it more than ever, then it is up to us to destroy the art world. I need you, brothers and sisters, to destroy what we have built. We need to create a ground zero. We need to level the fucking playing field. We need to burn our idols and resurrect new ones that are worthy of our worship. Do you understand me? If you agree, please say Max. Max. There is no I in Max. You are Max. And I am you. We are Max. Max. And with all that being said, I hope that you have a great rest of your evening. I hope that you join us tomorrow night for Phenomenology Yoga. Perhaps we will accompany it with some pure tones. 435 kilohertz. We're also in talks about creating gay water. Because, you can restructure water with 528 hertz, and you could restructure it into anything you want. All you have to do is put headphones on the glass of water. Isn't that amazing? And make affirmations to the water. The water can be whatever you want it to be, and obviously I want to create gay water. So soon we will have that. If you're interested in any of these things, if you like Thomas the Tank Engine, if you want to join us for our book club meeting Sunday night, please come. Book club is resuming. The quarantine is a perfect time for us to resume. Like I said, we have daily activities. We're exercising, we're watching movies, we're reading philosophy, Angles is Sunday, and then 2 weeks later, I assume we'll just stick with it, we'll be reading Nietzsche and his thoughts on perspectivism before we then graduate finally to Edmund Husserl, the forefather of phenomenology. So I hope you all have a great night and you're staying safe, not only for yourself, but for your other human peers, especially the elderly, but also younger people as well, because I've also heard that the lung damage from coronavirus is permanent. And you don't want that. Fuck that. So please stay safe. Drink your 528 restructured water. And remember, we are Max.